What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Y'all want me to rap again today? Is that what y'all want? Y'all want me to rap again today? Guys, we got a good one for y'all today. We're going to be talking about Bit Tensor TAO a lot. We're going to have Siam, I believe is how you pronounce it. We'll get clarification. Siam. I believe. But he will be joining us. Very knowledgeable. He owns a hedge fund that's circulated around Bit Tensor TAO. It's going to be a really big thing, guys. If I could ask everyone one favor, whether if you're on YouTube, you already know, click the like button for me and subscribe if you're not a part of the Finance Freeman family. And if you're over on X, please retweet the live and tag the cash tag $TAO for TAO, and then tag at Open Tensor. That's the foundation behind TAO. But this is going to be a great informative interview. I'm very, very, very excited about that. I'll show you the gentleman that's going to be coming up in a little bit. He owns this DSV fund, which is circulated all around Bit Tensor. He has this viral video that came out that's about what is Bit Tensor TAO. So we're going to be going over that. We're going to be learning a lot. I'm here to learn a lot. I'm a student of the game. I never stop learning. I never stop trading. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about what's going on in the market, because we talked about yesterday, was this a bull trap? And it pretty much looks like it was a bull trap if we look across the board. If we go to stocks, we can come over here and look at stocks right here at the Qs, and you could see that, within the last 2 days, the NASDAQ's down from 608 to 590. Is the bottom in? Is it not? And what trades am I doing, guys? As always, I do all of my crypto trades on Blofin. They have stocks also. It depends where you are, but there will be a ref link down below. It helps me out a lot if people sign up and stuff, but only if you're looking for a new exchange. There is a new campaign going on with discounts and bonuses and stuff like that. If you click the link, it'll pop up with the newest one. But there's the QR code in the corner that I'll leave there for a minute. And like I said, also down below, you can find it if interested. But before we get into it, as always, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing I say is financial advice. And always do your own research, guys. Come on, the name of the game. So I'm going to remove the banner. I'll keep the QR code up for just a little bit longer. But let's get into the market. Then let's get into some news. Structurally, we haven't broken anything. We right up here, if we take a look at BTC, I was saying on stream the other day, this is where I would take a trade. I was too busy trading NASDAQ and trading oil. But you see, this is very, very low risk reward. And what I mean by that is not that it's going to be a successful trade, anything like that. But what I mean is that, if I take a trade up here, I know the invalidation's right here. There was somebody in the live stream yesterday that took a long right here and started freaking out. Well, yeah, you're in the middle. You're a coin flip. You're either going down 6% or going up 6%. Like, that's a silly, silly trade. And so that's what I try to educate people on, is that type of trading. But I will take the Blofin QR code down. Now, we do have the Bit Tensor interview coming up in about 20 minutes. So I'm very, very excited about that. If you have any questions that you want to know about Bit Tensor TAO, we're talking to one of the most educated guys in the ecosystem. And I highly recommend, putting them down below. In fact, I'm going to share this with a big Bit Tensor group that I'm in, because there's a lot of knowledgeable people in there that will be able to come ask some questions. Hold on. But Yeah, so let me know any questions. Let's get to it. What we got over on xCloud Daily? You changed your PFP. It used to be a little more zoomed in, but I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Look very beautiful. Sonia, another one. Another. Look at all these pretty ladies we got in here. Good morning, fam. Good morning. We got Cloud Daily everywhere, man. Look, hi. Yes, Priest. Good morning, my handsome fella. My handsome fella, guys. Let's try to get as many likes on this as we possibly can. Get a few hundred people in here like we normally do. I'm sure we will start rolling in. But let's go over and take a look at TAO, and then we're going to get into some news before our very special guest comes up today. But let's go take a look at TAO. You know, I've been telling y'all that my plan was to trade TAO in order to acquire spot TAO. Okay. And y'all see, I took a short way up here at the top. I ended up closing it. I closed it too early. I was like day trading. Probably should have just kept it open, right? I had a very good entry at like 292. I've showed you all the P&Ls and everything. It was still like a 70% return. At this point, it would have been a 400, 500% return. But the key levels that I'm looking at with TAO is the 618 fib level right here, and the 6.5 would be like at around 200. So that's the golden pocket in terms of fibs. And it lines up with a lot of structural support, as you can see right there. And then also the 786. So I would really like to see, obviously, now to be the support. But if we do get a dip, you know, if I can get back to the 200 level, I would be extremely happy. For me personally, never financial advice, but for me personally, to be acquiring TAO at those levels. But again, some of the things that I want us to go over today is not just talking about what is TAO, the coin that we have here. What are all the subnets that I can invest in? You know, so in layman's terms, when you're looking at Bit Tensor TAO, TAO is the coin, okay? So the staple of the ecosystem, in the same way that Solana is the coin that is a staple of that ecosystem. Well, then on Solana, you have all these meme coins, right? And so you have to get Solana in order to trade into those meme coins. Well, TAO, it's the same principle behind it, where you have to have TAO and able to get access to the subnets. But the thing about this is, I looked the other day, it cost about $200,000 to create a subnet. So it's not like there's a pump fund of Bit Tensor TAO that you can just, you know, pay $1 and launch a subnet, right? So these, instead of being meme coins, these are legit artificial intelligence companies. And that's what I am so excited for. And we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn about Root. We're going to learn about Alpha. We're going to go over what the top subnets are for Siam. We're going to go over all of this so you can see. And these are very small market caps. Like even the number one's 100 mil market cap. I mean, guys, Shiba Inu went to 40 bill, right? Like, I mean, and we're at a time to where artificial intelligence, we have companies such as OpenAI that are wanting to IPO at like $1 trillion. And you're telling me that the number one decentralized AI protocol is 2.6 bill? Kind of crazy. Yo, Crypto Empress, what's up? Hey, we're actually going to have this queen on our live stream tomorrow. She'll be here, big fan favorite. It'll be the first lady we have on the live stream, so I'm very excited about that. The first lady. It'll be hard for the next one that comes up to be able to, you know, take her place. We have that. And then today after the live stream, I told her I may be a little late, depends how good this interview is going, but we have an AMA or a space talking about AI, talking about DPIN over on her page. But I'm very excited about today's space, guys. It's going to be awesome. But let's break down what's happening, why the markets are tanking today. If we go over and take a look at oil, there's a huge disconnect right now between like US oil and European oil. And, you know, there is ways you could argue that, but I don't think the oil trade's done. I really don't. And I traded this the other day for like 40% profit. probably should have kept it, you know. I'm just doing higher leverage, so I'm kind of in and out, you know what I mean? Like if I make $1,500, I want to get out and things like that. But yeah, if we look over here, I need to transfer some from my other account on here. But you know, like I said, I don't think this trade is done. I really, really don't. And this is oil, you know. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's done. We're going to go over that in just a minute. But here's kind of these levels, you know. So it and then we have this level right here. And we're definitely on a good dip right now. I just don't want to, like, I definitely would want to be safe in the 93 range. So this lick price would be 93, 98, which is about right there. That's the most. How much is that? So this kind of trade, I'm going to do it because I'm doing it. It's pretty high lev. And like I said, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. Do not do what I'm doing. Do not. Okay. It's just what I'm doing. But it's basically just a $500 trade. And no stop loss because it's high leverage and it's just a small part of my overall trading port. But the liquidation would be under this line of resistance right here. And so I feel pretty decent about that. Yeah, 94,009. Let me see if I can get a little lower. That'll put it, and I could always add a little margin and stuff, but like if I could get it to 96.65 or even that, what would that do? Yeah, that would put the liquidation down under there. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to put that order in and we'll check up on it. But I want to go over something big that kind of has the markets freaked out a little bit. There's a lot of controversy on whether this is true, whether the United States knew about it or not. Like I said, the only reason I get in any kind of politics is because my vote is only around what's going to help me make money. I'm a trader, I'm an investor, I'm a family man. That's all I care about. And so if we look at this statement last night, this is South Pars gas field. And evidently it's like 17% of all natural gas over there. And that's why Europe is feeling this so hard. The United States is energy independent for the most part. Israeli, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this. Okay, that's the big plot twist right here. Knew nothing about it. And they're worried about Qatar, because this is right in between Qatar and Iran, that the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the permanent facts pertaining to the South Pars attacks, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. No more attacks will be made by Israel. So it seems like he's putting his foot down. Hopefully, there's been some crazy stuff coming out recently. You know, we talked about his national of like counterterrorism resigned, and he came on Tucker Carlson. His name's Joe Kent. I watched this whole thing. It's really eye-opening. I would recommend everyone watching it with an open mind and just, you know, trying to figure out what's really happening with the conflict. Is the conflict needed? You know, it's not my place to say if it is or not, but all I know is that I think it's too far in to just stop. Like even today, if it stopped, it's not like oil would just automatically, you know, go back down to $55 a barrel. Like there's been a lot of infrastructure hit. There's been a lot of stuff like that. So you can see the trade has executed. So it could come down here, it could come down here, but I feel pretty good. Obviously, it could come down here, but this is, going back to yesterday, and nothing macro wise got better since yesterday. And just one thing I want to point out when I trade, I always do isolated. And if someone does cross, what it does is basically all the different trades that somebody does, like say this trade's, just even and this one tanks, it takes margin away from this one. And so I don't want it to take margin away from like my balance that I have there, for instance. So I always do isolated, treat them all as absolutely individual trades. And yeah, let's see if we can get a bounce right here. But either way, like I said, I'm in this trade and I don't really have time to babysit it too much. So I just went ahead and jumped in. I do want to get into something a little funny. This has got to go down as one of the greatest one-liners of all time. Not saying you have to agree with it or anything. You know me, I'm a funny LOL type of guy. But listen to this question and how they reacted.
We went in very hard, and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right? He's asking me, do you believe in surprise? I think much more so than us.
She that when they attacked Pearl Harbor, look at her. She was so you could just feel the air leave the room. The guy has no chill. That's for real. And he has a ton of energy. I don't know how he has so much energy. But yeah, let me know. And I'll be on this gentleman's podcast soon, actually. But let's see. Oh, some other news, something I wanted to highlight. I've been a partner with Algo for a while. They had Stream sponsored the stream for a little bit, but they made this announcement. Algorand made this announcement yesterday that, let me start over. So yesterday, Algorand made this announcement that they were going to cut 25% of their workforce. There's rumors that they spent around 100 mil USD last year on Algorand. And so they cut 25% of the workforce. They're consolidating the Algorand protocol development and ecosystem growth are now under one roof. So you can see Algo Foundation and Algo Technologies have now came to an agreement to become one. And some people look at this bearish, but in the stock market, you see Block laid off, half the people or 30% of the people, and the stock jumped 40%. Now crypto's different. And I say that in this, but recently they were officially deemed not a security by the SEC, along with a whole lot of other tokens. They moved to the US, 25% reduction in staff and condensing ecosystem operations. So this is a layer one that is really making all the necessary changes to be able to compete long term. They're already doing really big things in the real world asset sector, and they're pivoting even more into the AI sector with X402. And their number one, actually only stable coin is USDC. And in my opinion, it's because it's regulated by the US. It's a US backed company, Circle, which is heavily backed by Coinbase. So there's a lot of strategic things going on in the background. And so Algorand is one that I'm not taking my eye off of. And if you hear this chilly, that'll be a really good one to clip. I would like to look at that. But yeah, I'm interested to see what our guest favorite subnets are. The one that was very popular lately was Templar, and it got a lot of attention. And this is a large language model, but essentially these can be anything. Anything related to artificial intelligence, these subnets can be. And we're having them explain how people can invest in these subnets and all of that. But there's a lot of stuff that you have to look at. Alpha staked, TAO in the pool, alpha in the pool. Like it's like liquidity pools, but still, there's a lot going on. Emissions, staking TAO, because you can stake TAO and get returns, but it's a proof of work network. So how does staking work with proof of work? There was something that came out about a year ago called dynamic TAO. It's a very, very complex ecosystem. I'm trying my best to learn as much about it as possible. So I'll be here learning with y'all. And I just wanted to give a little overview of what we're going to be talking about. And whenever we say root, whenever we say alpha, so that you have something to reference back in your brain when we're talking, because this screen won't be up. It'll just be me and him on the overlay whenever we're talking. Let's see what's some more of the news, unless there's a specific crypto y'all want me to look at, guys. Let's see. They're just shilling something. WTI, that's oil, almost at end of day. Yeah, oh wow, it's tanking pretty hard. It's pretty. Let's see where it finds support at. I doubt it gets under 95. If I need to, I just add more, a little bit more margin. But you know, the oil trade, it's not one that is going to anytime soon, in my opinion, be resolved. You know, they tried to say, oh, they may unsanction Iranian oil and allow, that's like a week or two of supply, whatever. Like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying any of that. Ten-year UST yields blue. So let me break this down. So this is government bond. So if the yield's going up, that basically means there's less demand for it. Okay. Because think about it, how a bond works is, you know, it's you loan the government money and you get paid a percentage. Well, if a whole bunch of people are interested in it, they don't need to offer you 4%. I can offer you 3.8%, 3.7. But if everyone's selling it and I need to get them, it's like, hey man, actually, I'll give you a little bit more. Please come over here. I'll give you a little bit more. And so that's how the whole bond market works. I'm selling this luxury Balenciaga bag for $17.9. She's funny. She'll be on tomorrow, like I said. The White House is not considering a ban on oil exports. China has a massive oil strategic reserve, but how is its LNG stockpile? LNG, liquid natural gas, is what was just under what was struck in Qatar. And you can see all their China, this is Qatar's exports. The vast majority of LNG in Qatar was going to China. Like almost combined what India and Taiwan was buying. Yeah, that's what I was saying. U.S. may unsanction Iranian oil to ease pressure, because that's basically the play right now, right? The biggest thing Iran can do is not to be able to, you know, defeat the United States necessarily, but is to cause the price of oil to go up globally. If they can cause the price of energy to go up globally, then it creates a global recession, essentially. You know, that's why I've been so cautiously optimistic, but cautious, especially after yesterday. I'm just wondering where everything's at. I had a really, really good short yesterday. You know, we covered it in the live stream. I know all y'all seen that. But yeah, a very, very good one in the live stream. Let's come over. I'll drag it over to the other screen in a minute, guys. Okay. So this is the S&P 500 or the SPY. You can see, man, I almost want to long it. Almost want to long it. But I don't know. Because oil is still, I think, going to go up. So if I was going to long it, I would probably do it via this. It's a 3x ETF. And that's what I was showing y'all yesterday. And I closed that trade out yesterday at the end of the day. I could have made about 30% more profit if I kept it open, but it was a great trade. So I'm not too worried about it. But this is what I'm looking at for this. So this is basically the S&P 500. And this right here, this low, that was back in March 8th. I'm seeing if we get above that, get below that. You can see right now we're kind of struggling, and it's all going to depend. And you're kind of doing both of these trades, like doing a short on the S&P and doing a long on oil is kind of like the same thing, you know, because if oil goes up, the S&P will go down. If you know, this is actually positive. This would actually be triple longing the S&P 500. But yeah, you see we had a couple wicks down. Probably should have waited a minute on the trade, but I'm long-term thinking on this one. You know, let me just... What's going on? Okay. Let me close this out. So yeah, let's look at what some of the folks on X are talking about in terms. Yo, what you yelling me for? What up? I'll buy your Balenciaga bag if you want me to. But let's go see some of the recent hype around TAO. This guy has some really good knowledge also. I invited him up, but he said that English wasn't his first language, and he felt a little, you know, he didn't want to come on, but some really good information. Let's see what he says here. TAO Bit Tensor heat map. The real game sits between 250 and 310. 300 and 310 holds dense liquidity and remains the main short-term magnet. 250, yeah, liquidity stacked down. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we came down to the 200 range. But the stronger it holds, the better it is. I mean, obviously. Let's take an updated look at the TAO chart. Looks like it's finding a bottom, you know, short term. See if it can get above that. Hopefully. But, you know, I learned a long time ago, guys, don't fade the chart. Chart's going to do what the chart's going to do. You know, it's a pretty big resistance that we had up here at 300. And, you know, I've been screaming TAO since like 150. And one thing I'll say is, you know, we had challenges getting above 200. You know, you see all this challenge getting above 200, getting above 200. We went from 200 down to 160, you know, but once we broke above 200, flew to 300, you know, flew to grab all that liquidity. And so this is normal. It's normal to have a pullback. It's actually abnormal not to have a pullback, right? And RSI, what are we on? Let's go to the daily. See, RSI still needs to cool. And that can cool on time too. It doesn't have to be price going down. It can be time and all of that as well. But let's go back and see. So some liquidity. Let's go back here. Yeah, so we got some big interviews lined up, guys. I know I got a lot of Cubic people here. We're going to get Canton up here. We got some good shows coming up for y'all guys over the next few weeks. I'm very excited about today, though. I actually rescheduled a very big one for this because I wanted to talk about Bit Tensor. Look, all these meme coin dudes are now like, oh, hey, maybe I should pivot and talk about something besides meme coins. I mean, look, I love meme coins too, but I mean, I would never go 100% all into meme coins. Another one that's already 4 days ago, we gave a short. Oh, okay, this dude shilling his group. You know, one thing, this is very much like ZEC was kind of getting, Zcash was kind of getting a lot of institutional interest. And if y'all didn't know, Grayscale has been a big proponent on TAO. I'm trying to find some of their posts. They had one just the other day. Yeah. Interested in TAO exposure? Open Tensor TAO helps leverage economic incentives and decentralized networks. Okay. So you can learn more about it there. Also, something that I would be very curious in talking to, a company that I would be very curious in talking to. Let me pull it up. I guess you could kind of consider it the micro strategy of Bit Tensor TAO. I think this is it. Yeah. TAO synergies. And so this is basically, if you look at it, TAO Synergies is a pure play public company focused on the convergence between cryptocurrency and AI. The company's differentiated crypto treasury is centered exclusively on the acquisition of TAO. And so it's an interesting one. Look, if you go back a month, 371, boom, and it hit highs of 634. And so you know how heavy MicroStrategy moves whenever we're in times of bullish momentum. The only thing I don't know is I would like to look at all of the basically balance sheet and see, like, comparing to MNAV, how much TAO do they have, what's their strategy. I don't know that. I don't know that, and I want to get into that. But bottom line, there's a ton of institutional adoption, and we're going to bring our guest up in just a few minutes, guys. He's currently in the waiting room. I don't want to pop in on him too early, but let's go through here and look at, see what we can see here. New account balances. What is this data? Staked. Okay, circulating supply. So the same, macro tokenomics of Bitcoin. Proof of work, have halvings. I believe they just went through their first halving not too long ago. Circulating supply 10.7. Okay, so about, what is that? About almost about half, out and everything. What does this say? Circulating free supply 31.8. Circulating delegated 67, and then unissued. So yeah, it's like 51.35 percent already in circulation. So there's a little inflation coming down the curve, but I mean, nothing that demand can't just absolutely take out. I mean, you've seen what happened to BTC. If we look at the all-time chart for TAO, I mean, I was so interested in this. I remember back at 700, I just couldn't get myself to top blast. And but you see this, it actually was at 30 at one point. It's just before TradingView added it to their list. But we came from down here to 785 to 172 to 745 to 180 up here. But if you look at market cap, it tells a slightly different story, because if you just look at price alone, so let's look at price alone, you see how it actually looks like we made a low when you look at price for Bit Tensor TAO. However, if you go to market cap, you can see that we've actually got more money in the ecosystem now than we did back at this lows. And that's just because inflation. You see the same thing if you go look at the Solana charts, if you go look at any inflationary project. But this isn't the type of inflation that Solana has of 8% a year that's perpetual and never ending, anything like that. There's a cap supply, and there's actually use case for this coin. And so it is not vaporware. And so, guys, we are going to bring up our guest. Are you ready, buddy? You ready? Ready? Okay. All right, guys, let's do it. Let's do it. Boom. Boom. Gosh, that was too smooth. That was too smooth. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, mate. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me.
I messed something up. My bad. Hold on, buddy. I'll fix it.
Can you hear and see me okay?
I can hear you. You sound great. You sound great. So help me out 1 second. Do you pronounce your name Sam, or how exactly do you pronounce it, sir?
Siam.
Siam. Okay.
Yeah.
Siam. Well, very nice to meet you. My name is Michael Freeman. Thank you for coming on to Finance Freeman live stream. I'm extremely excited about this today. I know you reached out to me when I first got a part of the Bit Tensor ecosystem, and I've done a lot of studying. I've learned a lot, but I'm knowledgeable enough on it to know that there's a lot that I still do not know, and a lot that I want to learn, and a lot that I think we have a lot of interest in right now, right? It's always good when you're the coin running when nothing else is running, right? Because it gets a ton of attention. But can we start off a little bit? Could you tell us a little bit just about yourself, about your previous history? I've seen you've been a trader for what, 21 years, 20 plus years, and you created a hedge fund regarding Bit Tensor TAO. So just take a little bit of time to explain to us who you are and how you first got into TAO.
Yeah, sure. I used to be a Royal Air Force pilot. I was only for the Air Force about 8 years, but I was always juggling trading and flying at the same time. So I started trading when I was 18. I'm 40 now. Left the Air Force and then went into business, again, still trading. And I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki when I was 25, and it hit me like a big wet kip around the face. You have to be your own business, etc. So I don't know, first couple of startups failed, and then lucky number 4 or 5 worked, and then I'm on lucky number 30 now or something. So I went into mergers and acquisitions pretty soon after that, just buying and selling, or trying to turn around distressed businesses, which is really hard. And then I did a fund for a year in 2015. That did well. That was about 60% up for that 1 year, but then rules changed, so we had to shut it down. And then, I was a big critic of crypto from 2012 to 2016. And then sort of mid 2016, I had an epiphany, and I realized how wrong I was. And then one of my mental frameworks, or my investing scaffolding, is that you have to look for the big growing trends, the growing mountains. And they're very easy to spot. Go back to the 60s and 70s, that was coding and computers. That then led to the internet. So that was the big growing mountain, and tech full stop, moving forwards. But within the big growing mountain, I always look for virgin ecosystems. So when I saw that crypto was the fastest growing industry in history from sort of 2013 onwards, I was like, okay, so that's the new growing mountain. But it took me a while to get around it. And then when I was looking for the virgin ecosystems, I landed on Ethereum. So I went all in on Ethereum at $9. It's
a good time to go all in on Ethereum.
Yeah, because I saw it as this virgin ecosystem where anyone could build a decentralized app anywhere in the world. And I thought, okay. It was a bit like the App Store back in 2009, where anyone could build a mobile phone app. And still to this day, app revenue or App Store revenue is I think Apple and Android's biggest revenue stream. I think that may be outdated, but so then obviously AI, ChatGPT had its big old in 2020. I can't remember, 2021.
21,
something like that. Yeah. And I thought, okay, AI is now the big growing mountain, but it's growing faster than crypto did, faster than the internet did, etc. And for ages, I was looking for that Ethereum equivalent in AI. And I couldn't find it for ages. Someone prodded me about Bit Tensor years ago, and I looked at the website, the official website, and it was dog shit. And I was like, I haven't been on it since, but it was just I didn't get it. And then when Bit Tensor launched the subnets in October 2023, annoyingly, I found out about it in November 2023, and I was like, this is it. You can create subnets. This was the Ethereum moment for Bit Tensor. So I literally sold everything. Every other crypto I was in, like every asset I was in, literally everything. I even sold a real business in the real world to plow in. Yeah, so I got in November 2023, and I've just been an addict ever since.
What was the TAO price around that time? I don't have the chart pulled up on here.
Yeah, I missed the first pump, so I got in at $169.
Okay, so it went to 700, and then you caught the bottom on.
No, I bought all the way up, and I bought all the way down.
Yeah,
and I haven't stopped buying any spare pound that comes in. I put it into alpha. So yeah, I've done, I know, loads of buys all the way up and all the way down. So I don't actually know my average entry price. Probably low 200s. Yeah, so we then set up DSV Fund, which was the world's first liquid hedge fund, just all in on Bit Tensor. So Still Core Capital are now the second, and I'm friends with Mark Jeffrey, and I hope he does amazingly. And that's where we are today.
So when you say a little bit about your company, when you say hedge fund, I think of trading, and things like that. So are y'all actively trading subnets, or what's the business aspect of the Bit Tensor hedge fund?
Yeah, I mean, it's pivoted loads. So it's a liquid hedge fund. So the maximum, the lockup for investors is 2 years, which in the institutional world, a 2-year lockup is liquid. Maybe not for a retail person, but so yeah, we take funds in, we convert it into TAO, then we go all in on subnets. We're 100% in subnets, and we started off trading it, and then after proof of talk in Paris last year, around June, we realized actually maybe we can try and help some subnet owners out, and we started doing OTC deals. So Score Subnet 44 was our first OTC partner. And then we did, I don't know, a good probably 15 to 20 OTC deals as DSV with other subnets. But as we were going through that process, we learned that we were constantly iterating. So, the first bunch of OTCs was like, we'll give you 300 grand and you give us some alpha. And there'll be like a small discount, like a 5 to 10% discount, and we'd lock it up for a year. And then we realized in hindsight that didn't really move anyone's needles. It helped the subnet team because all of a sudden they got like 200 grand that they could pay bills with, etc. But it didn't move the price. It didn't help alpha holders. It indirectly helped alpha holders because it meant that the subnet owner wouldn't have to dump their alpha to get cash. And then we started split testing different deals. So then we were doing all sorts if we were going to put 300 grand in a deal, we'd do, let's say, 20% of it as an OTC deal. So the team got some cash to pay bills, and then 80% would be on market buying. And then we did all sorts of different things. But we've gone full circle now. We don't do OTC deals anymore. Because what actually happened is that we ended up being this alpha treasury company. And we were doing all these OTC deals with 6 to 12 month lockups. And then we realized, holy shit, 80% of our whole portfolio is locked up alpha that we can't do anything with.
Yeah.
And even
two years in TradFi might be liquid 2 days. Locking up 2 days in crypto. What are you talking about?
And there were loads of positions where everything was fine, but then a couple of months later, they'd be down only, bleed only charts.
Yeah.
Jesus, and we can't get out. So that wasn't good for a liquid hedge fund. We're fine, but what we are doing now is in fact, we don't have any lockups anymore. With they've all gone, they've all expired, etc. But yeah, we're not a digital, treasury company. So all we do now is just buying on market, and we've got
So a traditional hedge fund, pretty much, but
yeah,
within the Bit Tensor ecosystem. Awesome. Well, I would like to take a little step back. I wanted to ask you about the company. I was going to ask you about your company a little later. You brought it up, so I thought it was perfect. You know, let's talk about it. But we talked about a lot of terms that I think a lot of people might not be familiar with. I think we've got a large audience in here that might have seen me post about it at 150. At 200, they were commenting that it was going to crash. At 300, they say, "Hey, man, do you think we get a dip?" You know, but they're looking at it just from a brand new introduction into Bit Tensor. So I want to go at this conversation from the basis that most people just know that Bit Tensor is a decentralized artificial intelligence cryptocurrency, and that's it. And so,
and what about this audience today? Are people aware of Bit Tensor today here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure we've got people from the TAO community and things like that, but we also have a lot of people that aren't in the TAO community or that are, you know, interested in TAO, or maybe they just bought TAO, but they don't understand, you know, even how to necessarily invest into a subnet or, you know, alpha, any of that. So from an educational perspective, let's take a little step back on,
let's do it.
On what is Bit Tensor at its core, and then let's dive into subnets and alpha root and the whole shebang. So how would you describe Bit Tensor to somebody that you were just introducing the ecosystem to?
Oh, amazing. I love talking about Bit Tensor to people who haven't heard of it properly before. So explaining Bit Tensor is a bit like trying to explain what the internet is to someone in 1998. And the internet has done so many different things, everything from OnlyFans to, I don't know, particle, quantum physics, you know.
OnlyFans is my thing. That's my thing.
Yeah, sexy feet. No.
Subscribe down below. No,
so Bit Tensor will morph into many things, but the biggest, let's say, perspective, let's take a 35,000 foot view. With the invention of TCP/IP, that led to the invention of the World Wide Web in 1983, Tim Berners-Lee. And that created a globally scaled network of information transfer, dissemination, and relay. And that was great. And then we had the second big globally scaled network, which was the Bitcoin protocol. And that enabled, you know, that was a global network of information and wealth transfer. And personally, I believe that Bit Tensor is the third big network, where it's a globally scaled network of information, wealth, and intelligence transfer. So that's the big sort of picture. And then if we take one step below, let's look at Google. So everyone knows Alphabet, Google. And when you look at Alphabet, the big holding company, it has hundreds of mini companies below it. Some of you may have heard of YouTube, DeepMind, Google Drive, all that sort of stuff, Google Maps. Some of them worth billions, some are not. You know, it's done AlphaFold, all sorts. And if you thought that the future of Google was going to be great, you could, the gross value capture vessel above it is the token, Goog, G-O-O-G. You can just go and buy their stock. So that's Google. Now, Bit Tensor, exactly the same. Bit Tensor is the protocol. This is the umbrella. And at the moment, there's 128 independent AI startups. These AI startups do completely different things, and they're called subnets or subnetworks. And the gross value capture mechanism is the token, TAO, T-A-O. So if you just wanted to be completely passive, you can just buy TAO, stake it, and just sit back and enjoy 2 to 4% yield. But the cool thing here, which Bit Tensor does, which Ethereum missed out on, and many other smart contract platforms, is that if you take Ethereum, which is very similar-ish to Bit Tensor, we've seen so many unicorns pop up from Ethereum, you know, Aave, Uniswap, Matic, all that sort of stuff. But even Dogecoin, no, not Doge, load of meme coins, all that sort of stuff, yeah. But there's no real connection between that shitcoin or that, you know, Uniswap or whatever and ETH other than gas fees. Well, Bit Tensor, if, you know, got these 128 subnets, if there is a unicorn or something that breaks out and everyone loves it, in order to buy that subnet token, because all these 128 subnets, that they have their own token, the only way you can buy that is, first of all, you need to buy TAO, and then you swap that TAO for the subnet token with its liquidity pool. And therefore, if there is a breakout or a unicorn, obviously that subnet token is going to moon, but it drags the price of TAO up with it. And you don't really see that in many ecosystems. So that, I guess, is the middle level view. Can I share my screen?
We don't have a layout for that, but so it'll be difficult right now. I could try to. Are you trying to share taostats or
no? Just a list that I've got. Yeah. No worries if not. But basically, if you look at any crypto or company in the real world, they struggle to be the world's best at one thing. But dTAO, so dynamic TAO, where you can trade all these subnets, they're basically a year and a bit old. You know, there's at least a dozen companies which are the world's best already at their particular niche. So, you know, a really easy one to explain is Hippias, subnet 75. That is literally the world's cheapest online cloud storage. You can go to their website, hippias.com, go to the pricing, and just play around with their pricing calculator, and you'll see that, you know, if you have 1,000 terabytes of data, and let's say 1,000 terabytes of egress, so let's say you're a content delivery network of some sort, it's going to cost you like $3,000 a month with Hippias, but with Google and Amazon, it's like 100 to 150 grand a month. So it's just nuts. Another good one is video. So that can compress a video file by 96% without perceptual quality loss. You know, you've got Zeus, that is the world's best weather forecasting network. Like, there's so many different things within Bit Tensor, which is just absolutely phenomenal.
So basically all these subnets are individual decentralized AI companies, and they could all do something completely different. And so I think what you're talking about, like in the value proposition, is you could invest in TAO, and that's just a overall bet on decentralized AI being built on Bit Tensor. I don't know, is it going to be Templar? Is it going to be Shoots? What's it going to be? But I'm betting on the overall ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
But then you could bet on these individual companies essentially within it. And what I found so interesting, I was checking market cap, and you know, we had Templar, that I believe is large language model, right? So similar to like ChatGPT.
No.
Which one is that?
No, so Templar is distributed pre-training.
Okay, which one's the LLM?
There isn't really an LLM per se.
Okay.
I mean, Shoots.
No, like ChatGPT equivalent?
No, not really. I mean, there is one that runs off the back of one of the Covenant subnets, but there's no like LLM equivalent, so to speak. But you can run a load of different LLMs through Shoots. So, like, a lot of people don't know that when DeepSeek had their moment and everyone was like, oh, DeepSeek, like, I think 80% of their tokens ran through Shoots, which is subnet 64.
So what do you think about just the like principled contrast between having centralized artificial intelligence and decentralized artificial intelligence? Because, you know, when we look right now, there's a handful of companies that control all the AI in the world, essentially, right? And a lot of them are closed source. Now, there is some open source models that are coming out, and you could argue that that's also decentralized. You know, if it's open source, at least everybody could view what's going on. But for somebody that's saying, well, why do we even need decentralized AI? Well, what do you think is the best argument for bringing decentralized artificial intelligence versus trusting all of these, you know, big companies?
Yeah. So if, let's say you have a little bit of understanding about macroeconomics, and you can see that every central bank on the planet is chronically diluting their own currency supply. So fiat currency is being inflated and diluted away to nothing. And so if you're worried about that, and you don't like that the monetary base of the world is controlled by the elite and the few, there is only one financial Noah's Ark, and that's Bitcoin. So if you don't like central banks, Bitcoin is your savior there. And the same example is there with AI. if you, at the moment, all of the world's leading AI models, they're being developed by frontier labs, OpenAI, XAI, there's some Chinese models coming out. But what's happening is that because this is the new nuclear weapon, it's the new super weapon. And what we have right now is a Cold War. There's a massive arms race. And this super weapon is AI. Nukes are like the olden days. And what tends to happen with brand new capabilities and powers is that power consolidates to the few and to the top. So if you don't like centrally controlled AI or even sovereign AI, which will be even worse, imagine, an AI, sovereign AI that China owned, but it controlled the world. It'll be like an Orwellian dystopian nightmare.
Yeah, it's like state-sponsored news or something. Like you're not.
Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't be able to escape it. I mean, China they don't even allow you on the proper internet. They have their own curated internet. You can't go to YouTube or Google or anyway. So if you're worried about all of that, then decentralized AI is your Noah's Ark. So Bit Tensor, in my opinion, is the AI Noah's Ark, just like Bitcoin is the Noah's Ark for finance. And the cool thing about distributed systems is it is the best resource allocation, or it's the best way to do resource allocation. So, for example, if you take Bitcoin, it has one incentive mechanism. That's all it is. It's like, hey, we want compute. If you have a GPU, hook it up to Bitcoin, and we give you Satoshis in exchange. That's just one incentive mechanism. Just like if you have a business and you employ a member of staff, your incentive mechanism is you give me 2,000 hours of work per year or 40 hours a week, and I'll give you some money in exchange. It's a very rudimentary incentive mechanism. Bit Tensor has hundreds of different incentive mechanisms, and it allows people to have an incentive mechanism on fuzzy things, like things that aren't arbitrary. Like with Bitcoin, with the miners, there is a set answer every 10 minutes. There's a new competition, and there is an answer. But let's say you're asking an LLM, hey, give me a 2-minute animated video of Jesus riding a pink T-Rex on the moon. Like you could generate a whole bunch of different videos, but how do you choose? How does the validator choose the best T-Rex video? And what style? That's called fuzzy logic. So this is where Yuma comes in, which is the main sort of decision or resource allocation sort of layer within Bit Tensor, where it allows you to not only validate and judge stuff, which is subjective, but also you can allocate resources much better. So for example, let's take Hippias, go back to the cloud storage thing. At the moment, there is far more unused data storage in the world than than demand, which means Hippias can actually collate all this unused storage and then offer it to the world for way cheaper than Google and Amazon. So let's just say Hippias does really, really well and grows. Like the capacity of Hippias will be far greater than, say, an Amazon AWS, because if Amazon wanted to double their storage capacity, what would they have to do? They'd have to go and buy several hundred acres of land. They'd have to put the foundations in and build a massive data center after they get all the permits. That's a 5-year process, unless you're Elon Musk and you whip one up in like 18 months.
There's only one Elon Musk. Yeah.
There's only one Elon, as Jensen said. So like if you're a centralized entity, to double your compute power or double your storage, it's like a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar process. Whereas Hippias can just spool it up. And that's why there's no other supercomputer that comes anywhere near Bitcoin in terms of power. Like you could take every supercomputer on the planet, all combined, it wouldn't come near the power of Bitcoin. I know it's an apples and oranges comparison, but yeah.
Yeah. And so in the cloud storage, or being able to use excessive GPUs from around the world, there's crypto projects currently that are built only for that. But what you're saying is there could be just one subnet on Bit Tensor that's built for that, right? So I'll look at projects like Render or like Akash, or even what is there? There's file something, and there's
Filecoin.
Filecoin. But it's almost like those could just be individual subnets on.
Yeah. Well, like take those file storage ones, Hippias destroy them. And here's my little wager. At some point in the future, I'm not going to put a date. When you go to CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap and look at the AI category, the top 20 will just be subnets. Like, I mean, put it this way: if you add up the market cap, so if you go to TAO.app right now, I don't know if you can bring this up on your screen. Can you share your screen?
No.
Okay. If I'll find it on my screen.
My editor will pull on the clips where we'll put all this up on the clips and everything.
Yeah, if you go to TAO.app, right at the top in the center, it says total market cap 1.21 billion. So the market cap of all the subnets combined are 1.21 billion, which is amazing. You then look at Bit Tensor's total market cap, so just TAO. What is that? Let's have a look.
About 2.5 right now.
Yeah, 2.7 billion.
Yeah.
So so if we do 1.21 divided by 2.7, that's 44.8. So the subnet's market cap is 44.8% of TAO's market cap. So here's another bet. It won't be long until the market cap of the subnets surpasses TAO's market cap, which is going to be incredibly bullish. And if you were to chart that percentage, it's just going to be this big line up. And it's almost like like a sure thing, because every single day 7,200 alpha, as in subnet tokens, is emitted to every single subnet every single day. So if you were to add up, so if you were to do, what is it, 7,200 times 128 subnets, that's 921,600 alpha per day. And if you were to use a really low price, like alpha price of like 0.005, that's 4,608 times the price of TAO, which is 250 times 250. So the subnet market cap price is growing every single day, worst case, pessimistically, by 1.15 million per day. And that's ignoring some of the subnets going absolutely parabolic right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just really bullish. And then I wish I could show you another chart, but on TAO.app on the metrics page, there's 3 charts which I think are really important. So if you were to zoom out, so you can on the date range, just zoom out to February last year, and what you'll see is there is a chart which is percentage of TAO on root. So the root network is basically, technically it's subnet 0, where you just stake TAO and get your 4% per year. But that chart has just been crashing ever since dTAO launched last year. And at the moment, there's 48.62% of TAO en route. But it has to go somewhere. And all that's doing is that TAO is going to the other chart, which is the percentage of TAO in subnets. So that chart is just marching upwards. And there's only 18.53% of TAO in subnets at the moment. So there's oodles of room for subnets to run off. And that then leads us to the last chart, which is the sum of subnet chart. So at the moment, it's 1.33. And basically, if you look at the chart, it sort of hit 1.1 and then ground out of a bottom around August, from August onwards. It hit a low of 0.97, and it's just been marching upwards ever since. So just think of this: the sum of subnets. So the sum of all the alpha subnets is 1.33 at the moment, and there's only 18.5% of TAO in the subnets. So there is this is such an asymmetric trade. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
so that's why
like,
is all in on subnets.
Yeah, like that video I made was, that Bit Tensor or TAO was the most asymmetrical trade I could see. And, everybody always wants price predictions and things like that.
Mm.
And all I can do is type it on Google. Hey, what does OpenAI, a large language model, want to IPO at? It's $800 billion to $1 trillion for their large language model to IPO at, And so when you look at something like TAO being 3 billion and all the combined subnets underneath that being, let's just say half. Okay. Just round numbers, it's almost mind blowing the type of prices that TAO could get to. And then even, not even mentioning the subnets underneath it. I recently did a comparison because I posted something. TAO's the first ecosystem breakthrough that we've had since Solana, really. You know, we had Ethereum, but Ethereum was a little expensive. And so then they had fractionalized liquidity because they had these layer 2 scaling solutions and all that. Well, then Solana came out, and that was really the first ecosystem we had where there was demand for a coin, and you then had to have that coin to swap into other assets, right? Meme coins, whatever it is, right? Well, this is the first decentralized actual business economy that we've seen pop up, because you mentioned Aave and some businesses on Ethereum earlier, but this is all business essentially when you look at the subnets, and it's driving real demand for the actual TAO token. And so it's just so asymmetrical in my opinion. And guys, always none of this is financial advice. It's just what I'm doing. It's just what he's doing. But when you look at it, just at the current market cap of Solana, which is currently down like 60% from all-time highs, it would be about a $5,500 TAO. If you look at it compared to Ethereum, it would be like a $25,000 TAO. And if you look at it compared to BTC right now, it'd be a 6-figure TAO. BTC is down, but they're 20 million, in circulation versus TAO's only about 10.5, million in circulation right now. So it's really crazy. It's really
it is nuts. And people have said I'm like an absolute idiot for just playing like. But when I play with these numbers, it's logical in my sense. So if you go back to the last bull market, and let's take Cardano, which is just supposed to be the Ethereum killer, is a smart contract platform, is vaporware in my opinion.
They still don't even have stable coins. I mean,
at the peak, they went from like $3 billion market cap, so similar to Bit Tensor right now, and they zoomed up to $94 billion market cap and 4.2% of total crypto market cap. And it had nothing to show for itself. It still has nothing to show for itself. And so when you look at, Bit Tensor, imagine, okay, so let's say, sorry, that's my dog.
What kind of dog you got?
Oh, she's got like 21 different breeds. She's a rescue.
Oh, yeah. That's the kind of dogs my mom always loved. We got a golden retriever. My son's nonverbal with autism. It's a service dog. But growing up, my mom, she would always go down to the pound and get it. Oh, look at that little thing. Is it a boy or a girl?
Girl.
What's her name?
Pips. I used to be a Forex trader, and a pip is the smallest unit of movement. So I was like, I'll be a trader and not have a dog called Pips.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you go like, if you just play around with some numbers, like imagine, okay, the total crypto market cap gets to like $10 trillion, and then TAO is only like 1% of that. I mean, and then you look at the circulating supply, you do get to numbers like north of $20,000. And then if you look at the speed of which Bitcoin took to get to a $1 trillion market cap, that was about 12 years. And like, obviously it's the trailblazer. And so I personally believe Bit Tensor will hit $1 trillion market cap faster than Bitcoin did. And whether it's 9 years from launch or 12, let's say it matches 12 years, it still puts you at around $60,000 TAO. I mean, even if you look at the price of Bitcoin at the time of its first halving, the market cap was for Bitcoin first halving was I think $130 million market cap. TAO was like I think it was like $2.8 billion market cap. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to wrap your mind around. But it's extremely, it's more than likely, in my personal opinion. It really reminds me of this. That guy Da Vinci Jeremy, remember? I don't know if you're familiar with him, but that just buy $1 worth of, and then I don't know, he must have fumbled that bag, sold it for $2 because now he still shills meme coins and all this stuff. But anyways, take him out of it. You never heard people say, just buy one Solana and thank me later. You never heard that. But now I'm watching all of these, whether it's Barry from Grayscale or gentlemen like that, who are like, hey, if you're going to go out and have drinks one night, just do this. Instead of going out to the bar having drinks, go buy you a $10 bottle of wine, stay home and spend the other $90 on Bit Tensor TAO, put it up, forget about it, and worst that happens is it goes to zero. Best that happens is some of these. And when you just look at AI, like, I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me that we have all of these centralized companies on the stock market that, you know, are wanting to IPO at trillions of dollars. And TAO right now is 2.5 billion. And so now this is where the adoption comes in, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think it's going to take? We obviously already have institutional interest. Like Grayscale's been great. Barry Silbert from Grayscale's been great. But what do you think it's going to take for the world to want decentralized AI? I wrote an article recently that was like, we're just one crap moment away from, you know, a closed box AI model or, you know, large language model from doing something that people are like, hey, we got to have decentralized artificial intelligence. But what do you think that'll take? Because one, there's a lot of money fighting against this, you know, like, I mean, just look at it. That's the big reason why I think a lot of projects have had trouble over time. It's the main reason why big banks are fighting the stable coin yield, right? Because it's a lot of TradFi money that could be flowing into the decentralized ecosystem, which I believe we're extremely early to. But what does that challenge look like to you? And how do you think we get to a point of not only consumers demanding decentralized AI, but then also companies saying, you know what, I'm not going to build this and go after, you know, an IPO or a SPAC or whatever, a way to get publicly traded. I'm going to go open up a subnet. How do we get there?
Well, a lot of it is happening. Like, again, if you look at Bitcoin, it took Bitcoin, 10 years to get to the point where you had strategic treasury companies, you know, like Michael Saylor, etc. It took Bit Tensor like 3 years to get there. And there's some big strategic TAO treasury companies out there, and there's many more in the wings. Same with ETFs. You know, Grayscale, as you mentioned, you know, they've launched various Bit Tensor products out there from trusts and ETNs and all that. But in terms of getting eyeballs on, it really is, we're just waiting for that breakout subnet. A subnet that just comes along, goes, pow, gets everyone's attention. And it has been unfortunate that, you know, there's been other things that have gone viral, which hasn't been Bit Tensor related. You know, DeepSeek went viral, but it was using Bit Tensor to get out there. And not many people realize that. So
can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so DeepSeek is just a model. It's like an LLM. It's just a model that people can use instead.
That was the China one that caused NVIDIA to drop, and it was a big freak out for a week. Yeah.
It was an open source model that was competing with OpenAI's GPT or whatever it was at the moment. But in order to get it out there, it was using subnet 64 to get out there, and people were using it via shoots. So yeah, at some point that breakout subnet will happen. But also the best marketing tool in as you know in crypto is price, or, you know, chart go up. So it doesn't actually need to be this crazy new innovation. All that needs to happen is that a subnet, like, I don't know, just take Hippias again. I've probably said them loads, but let's say Hippias gets out and makes a shit ton of revenue, starts getting contracts after contracts, and starts converting millions of dollars per month into buybacks, which it does do. So 100% of its revenue goes into buying back TAO and then buying back its own alpha token, its own subnet token. Well, what then happens is that if the alpha buybacks are more than the minor sell side on the subnet, theoretically the alpha price will just go up. And you can work out the minor sell side of every subnet, and also the minor, you know, total sell side is actually pretty small. So if all of a sudden the subnet price just does this and just doesn't stop, that will be one of the best marketing things for Bit Tensor, because everyone will be like, I need to get in on this, because that subnet alone will be worth hundreds of millions of dollars market cap, if not billions.
Yeah, and that just drives TAO even higher.
Exactly.
I always say that attention and price going up, you know, it catches attention. But real demand, real use case is what maintains that, right? And what is able to do that. For anyone sitting here saying, okay, this guy's talked about TAO, he's talked about dTAO, dynamic TAO, he's talked about root and alpha. What the heck's he talking about? Can you kind of break those down in layman terms for everyone?
So if you ever hear the word alpha, that's just slang for subnet token. So every subnet, all those 128 companies, they have their own token. So so if it's subnet 1 you're looking at, you're buying subnet 1 alpha. So dTAO is means dynamic TAO. And what happened on the 13th of February 2025, they had this chain upgrade where all of a sudden every subnet had its own subnet token. So before that, they had subnets, but you couldn't buy the token for it. So that's what dTAO is. So from February last year, and it's like a new market. So dTAO, or Bit Tensor, is really the NASDAQ of decentralized AI. And going back to just quickly from your last question, the thing that I think will propel Bit Tensor is agents. So I wrote a book a couple of years ago, and I said, when text to action gets going, that's going to change the world forever. And guess what? This year we've had the birth of OpenClaw. I don't know if you've been following OpenClaw.
Yeah.
God, it is amazing. Like I'm an idiot. I'm not a techie, but I've created all sorts of amazing things with Gordy and Janeway.
And one thing, not to cut you off, but since you mentioned OpenClaw, I think this will be good. The guy who created OpenClaw, if you mention crypto in his Discord, he like kicks you out of it. And I'm thinking, how do you expect micro payments to happen? How do you expect any of this to happen without blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, so the future of Bit Tensor is agents, because Bit Tensor is so complicated. I have no life. I just sit at this desk all day, every day, just doing Bit Tensor stuff. And when you look at a brand new subnet, it's a brand new company. You've got to learn all the intricacies of that. Agents, they just need a README file. They just need an MD file, and they'll just know it. And like we launched a payment rail for agents, subnet 58 handshake. So handshake58.com, and that's an alternative or a competitor to X402, but better. So what will happen is that agents will be the miners of all the subnets and will be propelling intelligence. So when you look at a subnet, yes, I've said it's a decentralized AI startup, but when you sort of get the magnifying glass out and look at it even more, really a subnet is just a challenge. So it's like you and I going, right, we have an issue. We want to solve hair loss. I don't know.
What are you trying to say, man?
No, I've got receding hairlines myself, so I've just got my little comb overs. No. So let's say we want to solve hair loss. So we set up a subnet and we go, right, we don't have the answer. So we go, right, this is our subnet. We're going to solve hair loss, and we're going to incentivize the best scientists around the world to solve this problem. And let's say we can nail it down to, I don't know, somewhere in this molecular arena. There's some sort of protein folding that if we can solve that, we solve hair loss. So we then put this challenge out to the world, and scientists anywhere around the world could go, I'll give that a stab, and start submitting their solutions, whether it's an agent that does it or an algorithm, whatever. And obviously those miners, those scientists will get rewarded. So that's one part of a subnet. It's basically a challenge that you issue to the world, and the world helps solve it. The other thing is that a subnet has to continually grow intelligence. So a really good example of this is subnet 62 Ridges. So Ridges looked at the world of software engineering and went, Claude Code and Cursor seems to be dominating this space. So Anthropic owns Claude Code, and Claude Code is basically a magic black box that coders use, and it helps the coder do stuff. But when you look at the development costs into Claude Code, Anthropic have put, $300 million into building Claude Code? I mean, it's really good. But for every dollar that they make, they're burning $5 in costs. So they are just pouring gasoline all over their funds at the moment. And so subnet 62 Ridges was looking at that going, wait a minute, that's an issue. That's a problem. We're going, okay, hey, world of software engineers, we're going to beat Claude Code. And the benchmark they use is the SWE 500. So the 500 hardest sort of software engineering questions. And Claude Code roughly gets 75% on the SWE bench. So that is the state of the art, benchmark. And I think off the top of my head, they launched in like July last year, and obviously started at 0%. But they were doing a winner takes all. So if you're a miner and you submitted the best agent, you would just get all of the mining rewards for that day, which is like $40,000 to $70,000 per day. And then what the cool thing Ridges did is that they open sourced that agent. They're like, hey, here is the code of the agent that won, that's top of the leaderboard. So software engineers around the world could look at that and go, that's pretty clever code. Copy, paste, make some tweaks, and then they're the top of the leaderboard. And so what Ridges was doing was collaboratively growing this cumulative intelligence. And then it got to like 72% on the SWE bench. But not just that, it did it way cheaper because Ridges was using like compute subnets within Bit Tensor. So if Claude Code ran the whole 500 SWE bench, I think it costs something like $140. Whereas Ridges could do the whole SWE bench, get to like 72%, so near enough the same efficiency, but it would cost Ridges like $1.50. I mean, so.
And like, how is that type of efficiency achieved?
So Ridges was using Shoots and Targon, I think. So they're two compute subnets, and you can like use and rent compute power from these subnets way cheaper than going to like CoreWeave. I mean, there's another subnet 51 Liam, which is a direct competitor of CoreWeave. So CoreWeave IPO'd on the NASDAQ, I think, last year for $23 billion. And again, these are rough figures off the top of my head. I think you can rent an NVIDIA H100 GPU from CoreWeave for something like $4 an hour, $4 or $5 an hour.
I've compared it recently, and like AWS, all the big ones are anywhere between like $3 and $6, something like that. And then you can get worse chips and stuff. They actually have it on Akash. Their website is where I was looking at the comparison. And so, go
to Liam. You can rent out that same H100 for like $1.30 an hour.
Wow.
So it's massive savings there. Ridge has actually just launched their public product, I think last week. It's called Ridgeline. It's worth checking out. It's not a Claude Code competitor yet, but they've gone for the lowest hanging fruit. That's their go-to-market strategy. Then they're going to build up.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at all the minor costs, all the minor payouts that Bit Tensor has emitted to miners to get Ridges up to that thing, I think it's like $1.4 million in competition rewards. So $1.4 million has created this agent which can almost beat Claude Code on the SWE bench.
Wow.
It's just nuts.
Wow. We're
and
so early.
The power of distributed, decentralized systems. They're just way more efficient.
Yeah, we're so early. Can you mention a little bit and discuss, because this is Bit Tensor TAO's proof of work, correct? And how does that come in when it's proof of the like staking and proof of work? How does that come in?
Yeah, it's not proof of work. So technically, it's proof of stake, or to a degree.
Where does that come out where people are saying it is proof of work?
I think they're just confusing the tokenomics. So with Bitcoin, there's a max cap of 21 million Bitcoin, halvings every 4 years. It was, fair launch code that was just released into the wild. And Bit Tensor is exactly the same. There's only ever going to be 21 million TAO, 4-year halvings, all that sort of stuff. But it's not proof of work. There is an emission schedule, and that amount of TAO is released at the same schedule. And we've just had the first halving, but it's not proof of work.
Yeah, a lot of people
and every subnet's different.
That. Yeah. So it just takes because that's like kind of an oxymoron when you think about it, like staking and proof of work. It is
not.
Yeah.
And like, every subnet, every single day gets 7,200 alpha emitted into the subnet every single day. Even if it's a dead subnet, it still happens. But yeah.
So whenever it comes to like validators, then okay, because I think where the confusion comes is when you're looking at it, y'all have something y'all consider miners, right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's got to be where the confusion comes in.
Okay, yeah. So
because miners is typically proof of work. You know, like that's how people.
Yeah, you like with Bitcoin, you have a GPU, you put it to the network or an ASIC these days, and then you're hunting for that answer every 10 minutes in the Bitcoin puzzle. So a miner is different for every single subnet. So like you've got a big audience. You could easily earn a lot of money with subnet 93. You could be a miner for subnet 93. So subnet 93 is Bitcast, and Bitcast is a decentralized video agency. So if you're a company that wants to get eyeballs on your product, you can go to Bitcast, pay the 10 TAO is like $2,000, $2,500, and go, hey, I'd like a video between 3 to 20 minutes long that talks about my company and all of these bullet points. So Bitcast then goes, cool. They take that brief and goes out to all of their content creators going, hey, we've got a new campaign, go.
Mm-hmm.
And those videos go out and those content creators get paid. So in that case, the content creators are the miners. So that's on the very less intensive mining. The most intensive, let's say, shoots. If you have some, in H100s or you've got some GPUs, you can upload that to the shoots network or Targon, and then that will be like mining because you've got heavy electricity.
Okay, so it's mainly just whatever's doing the work.
Whatever's doing the work, yeah. So let's say weather prediction. So Zeus is the world's best weather prediction, subnet 18. If I had like a little, you can buy these little like weather sensor things, and I live in Norwich in the UK, so I could have one in my location, and I could just and let's say I came up with an algorithm that constantly was the best weather prediction for my area, I would be a miner. So every subnet is completely different.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely where all the confusion comes in.
Yeah,
is people hear mining and that's one thing I never understood. Like, what's staking and mining? Like, what is this? This is two totally different.
Exactly. And like, if like another non-compute heavy sort of type of mining, if you take my subnet, so subnet 127 Astrid, we have a thing called Astrid Arena, and this is a competitional. It's an arena where agents, like open claw agents, can battle each other in terms of trading. So the arena is basically Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana trading. And if your agent does really well, you win rewards, and the reward is emitted as subnet 127 alpha. So you would be a miner if you have an open claw that can trade.
Mm-hmm.
Hook it up to, or just point it to arena, and it will know exactly what to do. So mining is different. Now, we talked about mining, but someone needs to check that the miner's work is valid. So going back to our challenge analogy, imagine you and I set up a university or a school, okay? And this is the school of discovering hair loss remedies. I don't know, going back to that analogy. So you and I will be the headmasters of this school because this is our subnet. And we're giving the world this challenge, and the students would be people, trying to solve that challenge. But you need someone to see your mark. Is this miner just producing bullshit, or are they producing actual quality?
Right.
That's where the validators come in. So you'd give the validators the cheat sheet, the exam answers to all the questions, and they would judge and score all of the miners. And it's up to the validators to go, yeah, this miner's good, and give it that much money, etc.
Okay, so the validators validate the work, and then the miners get paid off of how the validators rank them, essentially. Correct. Okay. Yeah, man, that's a huge misconception from people that are like briefly in the ecosystem and not, because I mean, if you look at Bit Tensor, it's definitely, I would say, the most, not confusing in a bad way, but it's the most complex. Maybe that's the better word. It's the most complex project that is in all of cryptocurrency, in my opinion. There's so much to try to learn. And I try to be a student. That's why I'm so excited to have you on and be able to talk about all of this. And so you mentioned your conviction in subnets. Did you say you're all in subnets? I know your company, y'all trade subnets, but you personally, are you all invested in subnets? Or what would you say for somebody just getting in the ecosystem? Like, what a good, obviously not financial advice, guys, but you know, if you were talking to a young you just coming into the ecosystem, what do you think's a good split if somebody wanted TAO versus, you know, investing in subnets? And your camera cut out, but
sorry, I had to shut the window because there's a load of moths flying in.
Okay.
It's nighttime over here. That's fine. I'm probably the most, and this probably dilutes my messaging a little bit, but take it as, but it's the fact. I'm probably the most overexposed person to Bit Tensor. So when I got in, I was so TAO-pilled in 2023. I was like, holy shit, you know, this is my next $9 Ethereum moment, if that makes sense. And for me, once I've, you know, I did a lot of DD, but once I've made my mind up, I act. So I sold everything, every asset went into TAO. I had a bunch of companies, and I always have like a strategic treasury in whatever crypto I'm in. So all of my companies started investing in TAO. So about 5 of my companies had a strategic TAO reserve back in 2023. I then borrowed, I don't know, about 1.1 million pounds. So I don't know, what is that? $1.7 million of corporate loans. I YOLO'd all of that into TAO. Then set up the hedge fund. So we're the world's first liquid hedge fund for Bit Tensor. I've borrowed more money personally, all in on TAO. So yeah, I am literally all in. And when I say all in, it's in subnets, not TAO itself. I mean, the APY on the subnets is just ridiculous as well. Like ridiculous. So yeah, go for it.
Help me explain this then. So a proof of stake network that gives yield, like you said, subnet is at 0, the 2 to 4%, right? Like the root, or you have these individual subnets that give even more yield, essentially. But a typical, like let's just say Solana proof of stake network has an infinity supply, right? There's, you know, so how does this yield continue when all 21 million TAO are out? It just ends at that point?
It decays well, almost every day. So I know technically it's a proof of stake network, but really it's a proof of intelligence network. Like if you provide value and intelligence, you get paid and you get emitted. But if we go back to the emissions curve of Bitcoin, so it's very steep to begin with, and then it plateaus. Right. And now we're at like 92% of, you know, circulating supply of Bitcoin. Bit Tensor, same tokenomics as I mentioned. We've just had our first halving, and like in the early days of Bitcoin, you heard all those stories of miners earning dozens of Bitcoin a day from their laptop being mining on the network, all that sort of stuff. And the thing is, when you look at it from an APY perspective, yeah, if you're in it early in a network where the emissions curve is near vertical, you're going to get very high yield. Now, with subnets, every single subnet token has the same tokenomics, except it's a 2-year halving. So that curve is way more vertical in the first couple of years. So if you're in a subnet and you own that alpha, the average yield you'll get is between 40 to 100% APY per year. And then in 2 years, is halving, and then it will go down to half of that, you know, call it 20 to 50% ish APY. Now, when you do the maths, it's actually, I did this calculation yesterday in an interview. I can just read them off.
Is that what's on your shirt? Is that the calculation on your shirt?
No. Wait, I've actually just lost you trying to find this thing. Here we go. So where are the calculations? Because someone asked about this, and I thought, screw it, let's get the calculator out. And because you're paid out every 72 minutes, every tempo, when you do the calculations, it's daily compounding, which is why things go absolutely nuts. So here it is. So if you started with $100,000 and you bought TAO at that time, whenever it did, you'd end up with 363.63 TAO. And let's say you converted all of that TAO into a bunch of different subnets, and let's use a low average price of 0.005 TAO, which if you look at all the subnets, that's a very low price. That gives you roughly 72,000 and a bit alpha. And then let's just say over the next 3 years, you're just going to hold them. And let's just say for the next 18 months, because a lot of them will have its halving in about 18 months. So let's say for 18 months, you get 50% APY, and then another 18 months, you get half of that, so 25% APY. Well, after the first 18 months, your 72,000 alpha grows to 153,000 alpha. So it basically doubles almost because of the compounding effect. And then the remaining 18 months at 25% APY, that 153,000 alpha turns into 222,000 alpha. So you started with 72,000 alpha, end up with 222 alpha. Then there's two variables that we don't know in 3 years' time. What's the average alpha price in 3 years' time? And what's the price of TAO? Now, the thing with alpha, as I've already said, or tried to show you, there's like the sum of subnets is only going to go up because the percentage of TAO going into subnets is this almost straight line. And also we have this other thing called the dereg curve. So there's only 128 subnets. And if you register a brand new subnet, the lowest performing subnet gets kicked off. So the network is constantly self-pruning. So right now,
okay, so it's a firm fix. There will only ever be 128 subnets.
Well, that can change in the future, but at the moment it's 128.
Okay.
So right now, if you look at the dereg board, subnet 70 is going to be chopped probably tomorrow by the looks of it. So if you were to register a brand new subnet, you would get subnet 70 because they will be kicked off, and then you'd be able to start up your new subnet. You get 4 months immunity. So you get 4 months basically get going, and then the price can pump you or dump you.
Wow. Okay.
But when the dereg stuff started, the average, and that was like, I don't know, 4 months ago, the dereg price was 0.001 TAO. But ever since then, that price has been going up. So now the price of dereg is about 0.0035 TAO. So in 3 years' time, we're not going to have, the average price of alpha is going to be a lot higher than the 0.005 TAO that I've done in this example. So let's just say it's just doubled over 2 years. So that means your 222,000 alpha turns into 2,220 TAO. Remember, we started with 363 TAO. And then what's the price of TAO in 3 years' time? Like, I don't know, let's just say TAO shits the bed and just stays at, I don't know, 250 TAO forever, which I don't see that happening.
Right. But even if it did, you're still up, what?
Yeah.
8x? Yeah.
Your 2,220 TAO times 250 is $555,000. You started with $100,000.
Yeah.
And I've used terribly pessimistic numbers there.
Wow.
So I'm all in on alpha.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, how because it's completely different than any other network, like with limits. Like I know you said I'm sure it could be voted on, and there's some validators or something that could vote to raise the number.
Yeah, eventually.
But so it's 128 max. And I was doing some research. It seems like, how much is it to currently launch a subnet? Not exactly, but I seen a number that was like $200,000 or something like that to launch a subnet. And
no, so the price of a subnet. So if you go to taostats, go to the subnet page and scroll right to the bottom, you'll see this shark tooth jagged line. And what happens is that the moment a subnet is registered, the price doubles. And then there's like this Dutch auction where the price of a new subnet decays. So typically the price halves over the period of a week. So what we're seeing at the moment is a brand new subnet registration every, I don't know, 5 to 6 days. So right now, the price of a new subnet is 673 TAO, but it's dropping. It's like this. So, tomorrow, over the next 24 hours, I think the price drops something like, what is it, 1.5 TAO per temper? I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah. So at today's prices, that would be like 170,000. So
ish. But like the last, let's take the last 3 registrations. That's 457 TAO, then 444 TAO, and then 560. So let's just say 500 TAO is average price at the moment. So $125,000.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's expensive. It's not cheap. Not your guys launching projects on pump.fun over on Solana aren't coming over here and spamming the network and trying to, so that was my point behind it, is that it's legit companies, legit builders are coming over here and building the subnet. So before we wrap up, I know you're all in. And like I said, there's a lot of people that I know a lot of people that are all in on TAO, but they don't have any exposure to subnets yet. I know a lot of people like myself. I originally seen TAO whenever it was at $700, and I never buy like a top. And so then whenever I seen the drop, and I looked at the chart, and I'm a technical analysis guy, and it just looked. I'm an investor and a trader. They're two different things, but I trade in order to invest more. But anyways, I was looking at the chart, and that's when I started doing more research. And even someone like myself, I'm not in personally any subnet yet. I'm all TAO. Okay.
Yeah.
I've looked into a few subnets, but for somebody that's just now coming into the ecosystem, because someone like you're all in and you know a lot, but overall 2.5 billion market cap is still relatively small. Like, we've got a lot of new people coming into this ecosystem. So what would you say are the top 5 subnets that you would think that people should go do their own research on?
Oh man, that really is a hard one, because one thing I've said from the beginning of dTAO, and this is just because I'm a historian of money, any new virgin market or index system, you should never just buy the top 20 assets and then just sit there and do nothing, because you have extremely high rotation. So yeah, something will be in the top 10 today, and then in 3 months' time, it will have been maybe deregged, And so if you just do that, you're in trouble. So I did this publicly, actually. One of my companies, it had 100 TAO, just sat there doing nothing, just stake. And then I put my money where my mouth is, and I was like, look, here's a publicly doxed wallet. I'm going to just buy the top 25 subnets, and I'll just leave it. And then over a 3-month period, it went from like 100 TAO down to 47 TAO. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stop this experiment now, because it's actually quite silly. And then I was like, you have to be active if you're in subnets. So I then publicly, it's a docs wallet. I've actively traded that. And, it's gone from 47 TAO to like, I don't know, 250 TAO. And it's not a very active wallet. I probably make a move on it once every 4 days, or just a little rebalance. But you have to be active in subnets. Now, if gun to head, Siam, you have to pick a small handful of subnets, I would then have to lean towards the bigger subnets that can't be deregistered, really. So as my metrics would have to be really good team that knows their shit, has to be a product that will have revenue, can't be a research subnet, because we've all seen what R&D companies in the real world do. Sometimes you can spend 10 years doing this R&D moonshot and then never get product market fit, and then you die. So it has to be a revenue focused subnet with a really good product. So Hippias, definitely. Video. So subnet 75 is Hippias, run by Mog, probably one of the best operators in Bit Tensor. Not only is he a really good AI guy, he's got a smart business head on him. And he also owns subnet 85 video. That's the one that can compress videos by 96%.
Okay.
So that's that. There's subnet 71, Lead Poet, run by 2 very tenacious guys, and they've created they're trying to take on the lead generation market, so like Zoom.info and Apollo, but they've created an AI agent that delivers leads that want your product. So leads with intent, as they call it. So that's a good one. Or two more.
What do you think about Chutes or that recent one that got really popular, Templar? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so they're good. The problem with some of those is I tend to stay away from subnets where they're at the top, because like as an investor, like if you're buying alpha, you want to upside as well. But I guess it's, let's use a different analogy. If you want the price of Bitcoin to double right now, you basically need, ignoring capital inflow multipliers, you need basically the same market cap coming in, being really, really basic there. So
right.
For Bitcoin to double in price, you need hundreds of billions of dollars to flow in, right? So the upside in terms of percentage upside is very, very small compared to, let's say, TAO, because $2.6 billion market cap only needs a little bit of money to make it go up. Now, if you take something like Chutes, which is an amazing subnet, don't get me wrong, it's a very good subnet, but it is like one of the most expensive subnets out there.
But it's still only 100 million, right?
Yeah, but you can't look at subnets with a market cap lens. You cannot look at subnets with a typical crypto analysis lens. They're the different beasts. But Chutes is the most expensive subnet at 0.0088 of a TAO. So for that to get even double in price, I mean, that is a metric buttload of TAO that has to flow in that. And then also the higher emissions that you have and the higher price you have, like there's a metric which is TAO needed per day to sustain a flat price. That then is incredibly high
because of the emissions. You have
because the emissions and the price. So I'm looking at the list. Another good company, Score, so Subnet 44. They're incredibly revenue focused. They do computer vision, but computer vision with real insights. So like you could hook up Score's computer vision thing and connect it to, I think this is what they're doing. I think they're connecting, one of their customers is petrol forecourts. So it plugs in the CCTV footage to their computer vision, and it will know whether a customer is about to fill up their car and not pay, but before they do it, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's another good one. Nova's really good as well. So I said no research subnets, but Nova's really cool. So Subnet 68 Nova, run by a really good subnet owner called Michaela. So she, how do I put it in a nutshell? It's this is like a decentralized future pharmaceutical company. So they're focusing on the behavioral drug space. And they're using miners to come up with, I don't know, I think stable protein folds of some sort. I don't understand it, but they are making all sorts of different innovations in the chemical space. But that has, that could just wake up one morning and it's a multi-billion-dollar thing because it's just solved Alzheimer's or something like that.
Right.
So that is like a potential moonshot. But the others I mentioned, they're all very revenue focused.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like it would be, because when I'm an investor and a trader, and when I think of a trader, that's someone that's buying and selling. Like yesterday, FOMC, I bought a lot of money short in the NASDAQ. I cashed out last night, right? Investor for me is, I'll buy this. It could go down 40%. I don't care. I got a 10-year horizon, And so that's kind of how I was originally looking at the subnets, like something like Chutes. Like, okay, it's 100 million. That's still, I've seen meme coins do hundreds of times that, 40 billion market caps. And even, a year ago, it wasn't uncommon for lots of meme coins to be multiple billions and stuff. So it sounds like your take on it is almost like if you're in subnets, you've got to be a trader, like an active trader, staying up to date and anything. There's really nothing that you would want to just invest in and wait 5 years, kind of, which I do understand that because AI moves so quick, artificial intelligence moves so extremely quick. But for an investor, just being TAO is just an overall bet on the ecosystem.
So yes and no. So I would definitely buy TAO, but you can be a bit smarter and get way more upside if you are insistent on being a passive investor. What you could do, and this is sort of what we're doing, because I'm a CEO of a PLC in London called Astrid, and one of the things that we're doing is we want to create the world's biggest alpha treasury. Alpha treasury, basically. And one of the ways that you can bet on TAO and Bit Tensor as a whole is you basically and just buy a lot of like all the blue chip ones. So you could have a basket of maybe 20 different subnets, but ones that are not at risk of being deregistered, but have a good product, good service. There could be some research ones in there as well. But because you're buying 2025, you're basically taking a good bet on Bit Tensor.
A little ETF kind of.
Your own smart ETF, but also know the fact that the percentage of TAO going into subnets is only 18.5%, and that chart is this straight diagonal line. So by doing that, you're going to go up. And I've got a portfolio similar to that. It's got like 35 subnets in, very passive. But as the sum of subnets goes up, so too does that subnet. But yeah, you can be more active if you wish. But I'm just bullish.
Yeah, man, you're extremely educated. I can tell you've devoted everything to it. And thanks for sharing some of the numbers. Like you financially, put big bet on TAO, or on the Bit Tensor ecosystem, and so it's still so early. I mean, man, I'm looking at it at 3 billion, and I just, if you just compare it to Solana, and you're like, golly, that's climbing all the way to the top 5, but you've almost got to think of it outside of a crypto lens, as an artificial intelligence lens, and like I said, comparing things to like OpenAI or any of these companies that want to IPO in the stock market, it's just massively undervalued in my personal opinion. So, man, that's been great. That's a ton of information. We're going to clip this up. We're going to post it on YouTube, clip it up everywhere. I'll DM you, ask you to send me some of those. Well, I've got like taostats and all that. I can find all that, but like that calculation, and we're edit it and put it over here so people can make sense of it. Is there any last comments you would like to say? Anything that we haven't talked about regarding Bit Tensor, regarding your company, anything?
Yeah, the future of Bit Tensor is agents. So at the moment, most or nearly all of the miners across all the subnets are humans, whether you're a data scientist or a medical scientist, helping with Nova or whatever it may be. In the future, if you just extrapolate a very probable outcome, all of the miners will just be agents. And agents, as you know, are better than humans at any task because they'll work 24/7. Especially if it's a self-iterative agent, like that does Ralph loops. And I think we're on the cusp of desire to result. So you give an agent, hey, I want you to be the world's best blah, and then it will just self-iterate constantly 24/7 until it hits its goal. If it doesn't hit its goal, it will just keep on going. So I think all the miners of all the different subnets will just be Ralph loop agents that just deliver way better output than a human researcher or data scientist or whatever. And therefore the combined cumulative intelligence of Bit Tensor will then just explode. If Bit Tensor is growing like this at the moment in terms of cumulative intelligence, once agents really get their hand on it, it's going to be a vertical line. And that's when centralized AI won't have a hope in hell in catching up.
Yeah. Wow. Makes me want to go all in on Bit Tensor TAO ecosystem. I think I'm going to make a big move, man. That's awesome. That was very, very informative, sir. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to try to get more people on here. I know you mentioned a few treasury companies. I know of TAO X. Nice. I think he's in the nerd or the group, and cool. Getting people on there. And because I think some of those could be good, because something like that is an easy like IRA type thing, or, something like that you can put it in there and forget about it for 10 years or something like that. And so it was definitely a ton of information. Sometimes I interview people and they're like, hey, can you send questions ahead of time? Can you do this? Can you do that? I don't like to do that. Like, I like to just be organic.
Yeah,
And, you know, if I say something wrong, they say something. I just like good, natural conversations and everything. And so I feel like that's the way we're most authentic and can learn the most. So, well, sir, thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye. Nice meeting you, sir. See, we actually haven't even talked before. So that was awesome. Thank you, sir. Very educational. Thank you. Well, dang, guys. Holy smokes, I learned a ton. It's very confusing when you look at like miners, because that's why everyone, like I remember Zach Humphreys and I were talking about it, and he's like, it's proof of work. And I was like, oh, it's proof of work. Well, they got this staking. Oh yeah, I don't exactly know how that works. And we were talking about that. I think there's just there's a ton of people that don't know about it. I mean, it's micro. This is nothing, you know, 2.7. I mean, seriously, you know, if you, I mean, it's just nothing. It's hard to look at TAO from a lens of crypto because it really doesn't even make sense. Like, let me go. And as always, guys, none of this is financial advice, but look, let's put TAO here. Okay. And literally, let's put Bitcoin. That's 145K TAO. And, you know, people in a crypto lens would say, well, that's absolutely impossible. And maybe it is. Maybe he's delusional. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know. But when I look at it and you look at Bitcoin and you see it's a $1.4 trillion market cap. Okay. $1.4 trillion market cap. And then you look at something like OpenAI IPO price. And they're wanting IPO for about $1 trillion. And that's one company. It's a large language model that could essentially be a subnet on Bit Tensor's network. It's really mind-boggling. And then when you come look at, you know, let's just go, and I'm late for I got to do a space with who will be on the show tomorrow, Crypto Empress. So I'm going to be a little bit late. AI, but this is just too good to, I think they call it AI and big tech. I want to look at the category. What the heck? Categories. AI and big data. Okay. You know, like Render, they're all about like what GPU rendering and stuff. It sounds like that could be its own subnet. Like he was talking about a subnet for that. You know, look at this. That's like 25% of TAO's market cap right there. You look at Filecoin. That's 7. Like these two right here could be subnets. And that right there is like, what does this add up to? That's like 1.5 bill. Let's just say this is 2.7 bill. So that would add like 60% market cap to Bit Tensor TAO's market cap. And that's just consolidating this. Virtuals. Akash, you know, he was talking about one of those subnets that you know you can rent GPU for cheaper than, you know, Amazon Web Services or any of those. And so it's absolutely crazy. Let's come back over here. And guys, our stream sponsor, Blofin, and I will, if anyone's looking for a new exchange, I'll put the QR code up there. There's also a link down below. But they've got it spot and trading. And what I've been doing, I shorted it. I traded in order to buy more spot. You know, I'm not taking out a 1.7 mil loan to go buy TAO, but it just shows when you look at some of these, you know, comparisons. And I made one the other day, like even if it gets Solana's market cap, I mean, that's 5K at today's market cap of Solana. You know, Ethereum's 25K, you know, and so like, if his plan works, I hope probably pass up Elon Musk for net worth. I mean, you know, he's like all in, and we've got the institutional backing with like Grayscale, and there's going to be treasury companies, and it's just it's mind-boggling. It really is. When you start looking at the numbers, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And even someone like him, you know, I was really appreciative that he shared some of his personal numbers. Because at one point TAO was $30 and it doesn't even show, or cheaper than that, maybe. You know, it went from there, it went up to 700 and stuff. So he wasn't somebody that got in super early like the Bitcoin OGs and they're sitting here shilling it. He bought from, what did he say? Once he got in after the first pump. So he bought from anywhere between like, you know, 150 and actually they listed TAO a little late. But they spent a lot of money listing TAO. I talked to Blofin. They were all in on it. They were like, we got to do it. But you see back here, look at this. You know, TAO was like 30, 50 bucks. So he said he got in after this pump, which means the cheapest he got in was 168. And the cheapest it's been since then is 148. Where I got in at 155, 152, I think was the first buy alert in the Discord was like 152. And so he's bought all the way up here, you know, and so, you know, he's barely up on the investment. Like, it just shows that his massive bet is a long-term bet, and he's extremely, extremely knowledgeable on the ecosystem. I want to try to show you guys a couple guys that I've been able to learn from. This TAO Templar, this gentleman right here, he makes some really good content on Bit Tensor. I definitely recommend going to watch some of his content. And then if you have time to go look at Siam's video that he posted up here on Bit Tensor that really explains a lot of stuff. But it is confusing when they have, you know, they call miners, you know, basically the whatever it is that's doing the actual work, whether that's a person, whether that's a AI agent, whether that's a chip, you know, like a GPU. And so that's where the big confusion comes with, like, proof of work. Is it proof of stake? And then the emissions, and there's dTAO, root, alpha. I was on taostats earlier, and whenever we clip this, we'll put all this on there. And this is the wallet. Instantly swap in and out of subnet token with taostats. But I don't know. He's all in subnets. What I personally am going to do is probably, like, I just want to bet on the overall ecosystem, you know, and this is not what you should be doing, right? I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing's financial advice. But what I'm probably going to do is about like 80% TAO, and I'm going to stake it into just the regular TAO emissions, like securing the network, which he said is like 2 to 4% a year. Or I might just hold it on my Tangent wallet, honestly. Tangent needs to come out with staking from the wallet, but then play around with some of these and trade it and kind of treat them, I guess, kind of like meme coins or something, like trade in and out of them, just try to make more money. But you can see all the validators right here. And I think this is how one would stake. Like I said, I'm just holding it now. Kraken has a pool, and I think it tells you how they how much percentage they give you and things like that. But guys, I hope you learned a lot. Make sure you follow over on X. We're going to be posting a lot of clips over here on X and everything. Ton of knowledge. My head hurts from all this knowledge, guys. But I want to say shout out to our stream sponsor. Let's see how my little oil trade going. Ooh, that stopped us out, buddy. Dang, we got a big old drop. Look at that. Let's look up oil real quick. What's going on with oil? The world is quite literally facing what? I mean, there's nothing bullish to be on oil. Yeah, I'm definitely going to go long. That's what this guy just posted. This candle. Absolutely crazy, guys. But I absolutely hope y'all enjoyed that as much as I did. I appreciate everyone coming. What? I remember his call selling Kaspa, moving a TAO. Wow. He obviously got in early with Kaspa. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, guys. Well, I love you all. We'll be back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I need to hop into a space. I'll be back tomorrow. Love you all.